This episode is sponsored by LitVM, Litecoin's virtual machine. LitVM enables smart contract capabilities and Web3 applications for Litecoin. Designed for builders, LitVM features a modular ZK stack that operates on top of Litecoin and is powered by industry leaders such as Bitcoin OS, Arbitrum, Espresso, Succinct, and Caldera. Together with all the other builders in the ecosystem, LitVM is advancing the Litecoin Meta. Visit litvm.com. When it comes to mining, pools matter. This is why we recommend POWERPOOL. POWERPOOL is a mining pool built by miners to maximize profits. If you're mining from home or have a larger scaled operation, use POWERPOOL for the best payouts. POWERPOOL supports SHA-256, X11, Blake 2S, EagleSong, K-Heavy Hash, and of course our favorite, S-CRYPT for Litecoin, Dogecoin, Bellscoin, and others. Mining with POWERPOOL is easy with its simple user interface, and the platform has all the reporting exports that you're looking for. POWERPOOL typically charges a 1% fee, but if you use the 84 million link in the show notes, you will pay less than 1%, which is excellent. So sign up, point your machines, and start mining with POWERPOOL for lower fees and better payouts. Cheers, happy mining. Hello and welcome to the 84 Million Podcast. Today we're on episode 56, and we have with us the legend Master BTC LTC. Let me give him an introduction here. Master, known as Master BTC LTC on X, is a Litecoin advocate who's interested in mastering peer-to-peer monetary systems. Originally an engineer, his focus shifted from physical infrastructure to systems built on proof of work, studying what continues to function reliably as money. Again, he's on X at Master BTC LTC. Welcome back to the show, Master.
Hey, Kyle, how are you? I'm glad to be on the show once again. I think it's been, let's see here, probably 4 years, right?
Well, we've been running since 2023, so not quite that long, but you were very early on. You were episode 6. We're now on 56. Yep. So the first episode was kind of, it's now in the territory of myth and mystery. So we don't know what happened to that episode. Well, we're 50 episodes in.
Though, correct?
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, all right.
Either way, nice timing. Right. We didn't plan that one out. But I'd really like to know how to introduce you. I mean, I pulled that blurb from not the last episode. A lot has happened since. But from the back of the book, which we're going to talk about. But I mean, you're the largest Litecoin account that belongs to a single human. You're not an organization. You're one person. Right. And outside of Charlie, I think you're the biggest Litecoin account. You also returned from a months-long X ban. We remember that. And there was a time where you were offline. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, I know who you are. I'm glad to have you back. And I just think you're unstoppable. And now you have a book, which is running on Amazon, which is doing very well. So maybe and that's what we're going to talk about.
It is surprisingly doing really well. Yeah. I'm really excited about having the book actually released. It's out on Amazon. If you go to Amazon right now and you type in Litecoin, the book actually comes up as the top result. And, so I launched the book on Charlie Lee's birthday, which was April 13th. And it actually it did really well. I got a lot of friends and family that I contacted, right, to help, but I think it shot up to like 22,000 on Amazon. And you never know what people are going to say about your book, right? So a lot of people actually have said that, a lot of women too, so which is good. That there's several women that I know that have reached out and said, hey, it was an easy read. I was a little intimidated by Bitcoin and crypto. I don't really understand it, but your actually book was easy to understand, and they somewhat got it, So that was actually one of the best things that I've heard was that it's and the book was written more for mass adoption. Is kind of what I was thinking. It's really simple, has a lot of white space. It's written kind of in a cinematic way, and it's out there, and it's something that the stories that you're gonna read these stories in the book, and those stories are true, and they've been sitting on my computer since, like 22, and then so on. And I wasn't sure if I was ever going to publish any of them in any kind of capacity, And the way it kind of started was Earned Not Gifted. He wrote his book, The Second Bitcoin, which I recommend everyone also reading.
Yeah, but he was on
I
the
think it's more
show.
like a yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a little bit more technical, but it also kind of, his book also explains. It's kind of in three parts. I really like the first two parts. So the first part kind of talks about the psychology of money in a way, and the way that the way you experience, euphoria, mania, and markets. And then the second half would be more about like how do you actually value these kind of cryptocurrencies. And I think you put the market share potential for Litecoin is kind of high. So I would recommend reading his book there. So I read his book. I kind of helped him with the editing process, and I've had these books sitting on my computer. I was like, well, I'm just gonna bust out 13 reasons why Litecoin's a better Bitcoin. Something really simple that people could just pick, like even almost like a pamphlet, really. But it started to grow, and I'm by nature I'm a very technical person as an engineer, so I had this lengthy technical chapters, and I guess we can kind of start into some of it. But I have a couple anonymous friends on X, okay, and one in particular, and we can go into that a little bit later. But one in particular, I've been was sharing the book progress with him, and one day I was just like, well, I'm going to add one of the stories in there as an interlude, and I think you may have also been. I may have told you that, like structurally, the drafts had changed, and so so it was a technical piece with 13 chapters, and then I weaved in, a couple of the stories, and I liked them. And I was like, I think that if what I mean when I say when I liked them is that there's some symbolism and metaphors with my story. I have more of them I didn't put in there, and there's a couple of them that just for friends that I know for privacy reasons I left them out. But some of these stories are left out. But the ones that are there, this just the order that I put them in, um, I think tells a really good story, and there's a lot of symbolism with Charlie Lee. Okay, and you've probably seen that already when you're going through it. But so the stories were there, and I'm editing the stories. Well, when you're writing a book and reading a book and listening to a book, with my kids too, we wanted to hear the stories, right? Um, and that anonymous friend I told you about, I shared the chapter outline, and he wrote to me specifically. He said, "What interests me most is the story." Okay, and that was a very pivotal moment for me because I knew at that moment that what I was writing was at least the path that I should go down. Okay. So what I did then was I actually took all the technical chapters out. I had 26 chapters. I took them out, and I ended up with 13 chapters. Okay. So that's the book you have today. You have all these true stories that have happened and occurred. Most of them since 2022, but you know this when you read the book, right? You kind of go back into my brother in college, where he kind of had a gambling poker addiction, and just by chance, I had this story kind of. I knew this. So with Bitcoin, with Satoshi on the first implementation of the software, there was a poker room in the code in the software, right? So you kind of had this inkling that perhaps Satoshi was into poker, okay? And I think it just worked out so well. Like, so when the stories come through, it aligns with almost the origination of Bitcoin as it progressed along, and also Charlie and Satoshi. And then, we can get into the anonymous stuff a little bit later, which I think we'll want to do, but we'll probably want to build into that.
For sure. Well, it's a great book. I've been very outspoken in terms of encouraging people to read it. I bought the maximum I was allowed, and then opened up a
Yeah.
second Amazon account. So, friends, I paid for the book. I supported Master, as any of you would do on that platform. I have to say, I do have something very
Yeah.
special, which I didn't buy. This was a gift from you to me, by the way. This is the cover of the book,
Yeah.
the hardcover. You can see this kind of not for resale.
Are you showing it?
This was your
Are
proof.
you showing?
I am showing it.
Oh, I wonder if there's a way I could see that in the Zoom. Oh,
Um,
here we go. Okay, I can see you. Yeah. All right.
he sees me.
It's so
Nobody
much
can
better
see
to be able
him,
to see
but he
you.
sees me. That's right.
I didn't have it turned on. Now I can see you. Yeah, great.
And then, of course,
Kyle, before you go on, I will say thank you. You've been a great friend. We've never actually officially met, but I asked you to write a note, an after note for the book, and it was phenomenal. And I think you actually added to the lore of what we're going to talk about.
yeah, and I corrected some of your minimal Korean, but not a lot of contributions. But I
You
was
did.
reading the
You
proofs,
did.
and
Yeah.
you did get some feedback from me. But we got a hardcover, we've got a soft cover. Of course, it's available as a Kindle or an ebook as well on Amazon. Check the show notes and grab a copy. But I just want to go about this was released in April. It's still April. Today's the 25th.
Yeah.
CZ of Binance released the Freedom of Money the week before this book came out.
He did.
And what I'm seeing is he had, as of yesterday, 21 reviews at what was he at? 4.7 stars. And I see Masters, the other Bitcoin, has 25 reviews and 5.0 stars. So impressive. You know, we have a member of the Litecoin community, as legendary as you are and as mysterious as you are. But then we have basically the man ahead of the world's largest Bitcoin exchange or cryptocurrency exchange. And you're actually out competing him in some ways on Amazon, which is pretty amazing. So let that be a statement about the fight.
The other thing that to add to that is super interesting. That there's actually a couple we'll talk about here, but one of them, when you go on Amazon, it's probably still there right now. If you go to the new releases under Bitcoin, you actually see CZ has two versions of his book. He has like an English version, and then he has a Mandarin or Chinese version of his book. And the other Bitcoin was in the middle of those two versions.
Interesting.
Right. And, it's framed by freedom money and English and Chinese. And if you know, Charlie Lee is, he's comes from Chinese ancestry, right? So he's Chinese and American. And I just felt that was another symbolic way to see the book, right, in a different light. And to your point about having more reviews, I think it just shows that Litecoin is decentralized, and that even the book itself, the subtitle is why Litecoin is hiding in plain sight. I think the book itself is hiding in plain sight, right? It's right there. And let's go into a little bit more about CZ. CZ's book, when I think it was, it was a little bit further in, but so CZ talked about, and he's talked about it recently a couple times about fungibility, and he highlighted that. Guess who got him into Bitcoin?
Tell us.
Bobby Lee. Yeah, Bobby Lee. Right? Who's Bobby Lee? Well, Bobby Lee is Charlie Lee's brother, and at the time, Bobby Lee was running a crypto Bitcoin exchange in China.
BTC China. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so Bobby actually, the story goes, introduced CZ into crypto. And of course, Charlie introduced Bobby into Bitcoin. So you have that there. And that's in his book, right? And he, in 2013 is when this occurred. So, CZ talks about freedom money, and he really highlights that both Bobby Lee and Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin, was kind of instrumental in him getting into this space, right? And even if I think it was in 2013, CZ sold his apartment or condo or whatever, and ended up going all in on Bitcoin, right? Which was just a risky move then, but he had the foresight to see that the impact that Bitcoin could have on our monetary system. And I think there's just a parallel right now that could be reoccurring again, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't read his book yet. I did buy it. I think it's going to be interesting. It is. I mean, obviously he's a big player, but it is interesting that Charlie, even in this story, was first, right? Charlie, then Bobby, then
Correct.
CZ.
He's been everywhere. Charlie's if you look at Charlie where he's been, his hand has been at the beginning of almost everything. I mean, I want to say that he's done all this, but what I'm saying is he's just been there in some capacity, even with Brian Armstrong at Coinbase, right? So most people don't know that Charlie Lee was probably one of the first engineers they hired. I don't know if he was 3 or 4 or 5, but he was head of engineering. And Brian gave him a really nice accolade. I think last year he talked about how Charlie came in and they kind of bootstrapped this wallet protection system for them that had I don't know if it was this the security of the code and whatnot, so they could have hot and cold wallets and then run the exchange. So Charlie Lee was very instrumental in Coinbase,
He was.
and yeah, yeah. So you could say that Binance and Coinbase, the two largest exchanges, Charlie Lee had perhaps an effect there.
Well, I want to get back to your book. I think it's refreshing in terms that, again, it is more story-like narrative, which we're going to get into some of these details, a lot of these details today.
Yeah.
But our space is generally left brain. So this was extremely easy to consume. And I think we're seeing that with your reviews.
Yeah.
So again, you got to pick this up and read it for yourself. But this is going to be a great conversation. Before we go into maybe some of the stories, how did you structure the book?
Well, like I said, it was I started with the technical pieces and then I started weaving in my stories. So the book that I have written on my computer with the stories they were almost as they occurred, right? And so I kind of changed it a little bit, but basically there's somewhat chronological order for the most part. Like there's a couple, and I moved a couple chapters up front just to kind of get the effect, right, of kind of like a little bit of action, And I think I moved MWeb up because it was so, and the reason I moved the MWeb one up earlier, for me was we'll have to just go right into it. We're going to go right there. Okay, so on MWeb, as you know, I was involved in the early. I'm not a developer, but maybe over time now you might say that I am a little bit now, but at the time, no, I was just an early tester to MWeb. I was in the early chat with a couple other people, and we're talking and discussing about MWeb development, okay, and getting ready for the deployment of it, the launch of it, and so I'm in the chat. I'm an anonymous person at that time, and I want to say it was probably the day of it or maybe the night before. I don't remember.
And this is May 2022.
Yes, let's talk. Yeah, it was May 2022. And I get this message from Satoshi Light, which is Charlie Lee. And he says, like, hey, do you want to join the live stream? And it's like, oh, man. Like, how do you say no to the creator of Litecoin? To jump on the chat. And, so I talked to him a little bit about it. He's like, you don't have to show your face or whatever. But I felt like at the time, showing my face, going on camera, was really impactful for Litecoin. One, because, it's at the bottom. Most people, they're here to become famous. I don't want to say most people. Okay, sorry. I want to say some people, is particularly in Bitcoin, they're going to gravitate the people that are kind of power hungry. They like to hear themselves talk. They want to be influential, almost like a politician.
Yep.
I'm not like that at all. I mean, as you can see right now, I really don't care. And so to that point is at the bottom. I showed my face, and on the live stream, you can go there right now and take a look at it on YouTube. It's on YouTube. There's a specific part, and I don't want to get. Maybe we'll give away some of the details. Why not? There's a specific part when Loshan says a funny line out of nowhere. Okay, he says something like "A5 Wagyu," or we should give David Burkett some Wagyu. And if you look at the timestamps, it's right at an hour and 31 minutes. And the reason I mentioned that 131 you got to read the book.
This
But
is all over
we're
your
going to go
book.
in some of those.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. So there's a lot of intense numerology, but I think it's done in a way that's a little bit soft, so it's not overbearing, but it is there and it is present. Um, and I think there was a sign, and at that point, a line was crossed, and I knew that the path I was down was the right one.
Mm-hmm. You open up. It says May 2022. The house was bigger now, too much space. Most of what I owned was already somewhere else. My phone lit up. Do you want to join? I looked at the name Charlie.
Yep.
But this didn't begin there. Interesting opening. And again, you just described that was actually an invitation to join the MWeb launch live stream. So
Yes.
this is how we kind of opened the book, but why was the house empty? Maybe tell us some of that backstory.
Yeah, that's the craziest
What was going on in
part
your
is
life?
that,
Because again, there's a lot interwoven in this book.
yeah, there was. Well, so we were in a brutal bear market, and Litecoin crashed down to a price where I was like, we should just sell and move to Florida. And so we put our house up. We sold our home, and I believe the day that I signed the contract was the day that MWeb launched, right in there. And I believe it was the same day. And so for me, it was just all these things occurred it was just so impactful. And I remember it vividly that it just, yeah. And our house was, when I say our house was empty, was because we've been showing our house, people are coming in and out of your house, and it's like super clean, and like, everything's kind of taken off and off the walls, and there's like no clutter. So even in my office, it echoed a little bit, right? And the point of that is like there's some echoes in the book that the house is bigger, it's got capacity, there's an expansive nature about it, and that's kind of what I wanted to have as an impact, is that there's bigger things occurring, and we ended up moving to Florida right at that time. So there's a lot of things that were changing, and of course my wife and my children, we all moved together. And in the book, I know I'm going to jump around, just how I am, but in the book, if you know that, so the first instance of Bitcoin being in pop culture was on the TV show The Good Wife. Okay. And in the book, you should understand that my wife is a good wife, a great wife, right? That she stood by me through all of this. You have to read the story to kind of understand it. But she's also grounded and skeptical, you know? And then there's other good wives in the story you'll see. I don't want to ruin all of it, but you have to just read it, and you'll see who those other wives are. And it's just really symbolic.
Well, I think if people actually hear everything on this episode, which it's not going to happen, they would still be interested to read the book. Because again, I've read it in the proof form. I've read it when I got it in the mail and I ordered it on day one. I've read the ebook. I've read this a lot, and it keeps revealing more things to me. And then, of course, your marginalia is kind of amazing. Now, that's under lock and key with me, where I can see even more of the symbols and kind of the patterns that I didn't catch that you were hinting at within these pages. But
yes,
so MWeb is going live. I remember this. I remember being low-key chastised for not being on that call.
Yeah.
But I remember it vividly, and like hearing you retell a lot of this is personally kind of nostalgic and special. I don't know how to describe it, because a lot of us that were there then lived it, and we're just like, I remember that meeting. I remember that live stream, even though I watched it a day later. I remember those conversations. I remember the excitement. I remember the fear. I remember the market. And so we get to look at Litecoin. We get to look at some people at Litecoin, but we also get to look at you, which is interesting, because this 2022 was after you went all in on Litecoin, and then you could have risked all of that if MWeb would have failed. And I think you described that a little bit.
Absolutely.
But you went all in on Litecoin. Tell us about going all in on Litecoin, because you were probably the first person that I know on X at the time that really did that, because a lot of us are pro Bitcoin.
Yes.
Litecoiners have been like
Yep.
that since the very early days. And there's something special about the code being related and a lot of these things being related. But I remember when you made an announcement that you went all in, and Charlie knew it because
Yep.
he even said something about how does it feel, or you went all in, or he made some allusion that he knew that you sold
Well,
your house and everything you
he
did.
asked me, yeah, he asked me specifically at 1:31 right after. He asked me specifically, he said, "You sold your house?" Right. So then but let's go back. So at that time, yes. And I'll be very candid. It was really intense. Okay. And there's not much you can do. Like for me, I didn't know what could I do, right? I'm just looking like a Block Explorer, have my node running. Like, I mean, what are you going to do? I don't know what to do, right? So you're right to that point. I had everything living in that chart. I had everything in Litecoin at that point, just because of my conviction and what I knew at the time, and so very intense. And one of the funniest parts of all of that is that even right now, I had troubles with my microphone. Okay.
Mhm.
So on the chat, I get on there, and you have this global monetary system with the biggest upgrade of all time, right? The fungibility, privacy, scalability, adding to Litecoin. In the name of it is what?
Tongue tying curse.
The tongue tying curse, right?
Mimble wimble.
So,
Mhm.
yes, something you hear from Harry Potter, right? It's a different word, a unique word, Mimblewimble, and there's some lore in itself. And even Mimblewimble has an anonymous creator, right? And that anonymous creator launched the Mimblewimble white paper, and later on, guess who? Charlie ended up helping add that to Litecoin. So I was embarrassed at the time. I was also, somewhat fearful a little bit. You could say very intense. I mean, I'm super optimistic, right? So, I mean, obviously went through it. But what I'm trying to say is that there was a lot of emotion happening at the MWeb launch. Okay. And hearing Loshan drop the A5 Wagyu kind of made it funny, a little lighthearted. And then, they obviously asked me about why I went all in on Litecoin in 1 hour and 31 minutes. So there's a lot of symbolism there.
We'll link this the MWeb live stream archive in the show notes. I'll probably rewatch that. I've read your book 4 times, but I didn't rewatch that screen. But I remember the stream. It was
Yeah.
you, Grant, eCurrency Hodler, John
Yeah.
Kim. I think
Loshan,
Samson
David
Mao
Burkett.
came in too.
Yeah, he popped in. I believe he popped in, was like, "Oh, what's MWeb?" and then popped out. The other interesting part was this. Check this out. And I forgot about this. So Samson Mao was following me on X up until that point. And then after MWeb, I think I went a little intense on bashing Bitcoin, and he unfollowed me.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting.
Can we talk
Definitely.
about the foreword by Oishi Yoshio? Is that correct?
Oishi Yoshio.
Oishi
Oishi
Yoshio.
Yoshio.
Oishi
Yes.
Yoshio.
Yeah, and let's do that. So we're gonna have to go back in time. Well, I guess it's still around the same time. I got we're just gonna tell the story. So I received a Telegram message, and this is in the book a little bit here, from an anonymous person named Musashi. Okay. Musashi. And Musashi, if you look in ancient Japanese times, was one of the most famous samurais who never lost a battle. And I think at the age of 13, he had his first battle with a samurai, right? And he like picked up a stick or something like that, or a rod, like a wooden rod, and ended up beating the samurai with a sword, as the story goes. At least I recall. And so so Musashi is this popular or famous samurai in Japanese history. Okay, so anyways, I got the message, and the message was, "Hey, I want to write." It's in the book, chapter, I don't know, 13 or 14, something like that. It's after chapter 13, I think. So the intent of it, I can't remember all of it, but the intent of it was that, hey, I'm going to publish an article on your website, which is a blog or a website, look into litecoin.com, which is still there now. And I think he gave me the article there. I'm pretty sure he did. So he gave me the article in that Telegram message. And that occurred on Charlie's birthday, 4/13/2022, I believe is when it was. So that would have been before the MWeb upgrade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I got this message. And in there, it also said something to the effect of never publish anything without an aha moment. And don't be afraid to repeat it if it's true or something to that effect. Okay. So that kind of stuck with me. Like, this is an intense message, very strategic, but intense, well written. Right. And then I didn't really, maybe at the time I remember it, but I had to go back and look at that. And at the end of it, it also says something, not sure the proper word to describe it, but it says this is given as a one is, maybe it says weapon, to annihilate your opponent. Okay, it's I seem to be using the word intense right now, but it's something, a word that would describe that, but very impactful, a lot of meaning behind it, and almost like a lot of violence in a way, so it has some severity to it. And that was all on 4/13/2022. Okay. That was the only message I had received from that person. And then I received another message from another anonymous character. And I will not mention who that is. I won't mention who that is. And because they're on X. And in that message, alluded to, I contact you here. Here's, maybe that's where the draft came. I'm kind of down the weeds, but anyways, so I connected those two characters, and that person ended up writing, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 different articles on looking to Litecoin, and they kind of talk about game theory. They talk about Bitcoin maximalism. Let's see, there's a couple others. They're worth reading, but one about privacy.
And this is
always in that. Yeah. So the person asked to attribute those articles to Oishi Yoshio, and when they signed up to look into Litecoin as an account on Charlie's birthday, it was also Oishi Yoshio. Okay. And Oishi Yoshio is also in Japanese history, and I didn't know any of this until I had to look into it, and I've been looking into it for a while now. And so all those articles are signed off by Oishi Yoshio. And Oishi Yoshio I think he was a samurai that, see, he would be a samurai, but he had a master, and the master's name was Asano, and Asano went to, I don't know, another samurai. I'm not sure if it was a samurai, but another high up in Japanese shogun. And there was a tiff or a taff or whatever. They had a disagreement, and Asano ended up slicing or attacking Kira. And you're not allowed to do that in the temple or whatever, wherever they were. As the story goes, right? You can read about this, called the 47 Ronin, or watch a movie or whatever. And I think there's even like plays about it in Japanese history. Anyways, so they end up killing. Well, he has to, since Asano attacked him in the temple, he had to commit suicide. Seppuku, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
And what that means is, I think you drive a sword into your stomach, and as you drive it in, as soon as you pierce the stomach, then another samurai just cleans your head, takes your head right off, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So as the story goes, Oishi was one of the samurai under Master Asano, the one who was just killed. And over the course of several years, like tomfoolery or drunkenness, he acted like he was a fool, didn't, had no intent for revenge. And they call them Ronin because they're master samurai. They're kind of, their lands were taken away and all this stuff was taken away from them. So they're Ronin. It means masterless, right? Mm-hmm. And just by chance, my name on X is just master. And the reason for master was it's simply kind of Andreas Antonopoulos, right? He wanted to master, well, he wrote Mastering Bitcoin. And I was like, well, I want to master Bitcoin and Litecoin, right? The name is, can be embarrassing, like I don't want to be called a master, you know, sometimes it's just how it goes. Um, so, anyways, so Oishi, he actually was plotting revenge. And after a couple years, they stormed Kira's temple and executed him. And you can there's a movie you can watch, 47 Ronin, like from 1941. There's one in 2013. I watched it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it.
With Keanu
Like the
Reeves.
plots,
Yeah.
yeah, with Keanu Reeves, and the plot's just like they don't really build the characters. You can't. It's really hard to follow. I don't really necessarily recommend it. So that's that. But okay, so yeah, Musashi to Oishi Yoshio, and then the forward. So now we're at the forward. Okay,
forward,
so
exactly.
the forward is written by my real anonymous friend, not myself. I didn't make it up. And I think everyone needs to read the forward and then read it again and then read it again and then read it one more time because it talks about another Japanese character, Masamune. And Masamune was the uh, sword maker of Japan and made several swords. The strength of the sword, the style of the sword, everyone wanted the sword, and there was like some story about I think it was I can't remember the name. It was like Hogan, um, Hogan Masamune sword. He ended up killing like there was a big battle or whatever, and he ended up taking that sword, and so that sword was passed down through the shogun in Japan. The 1400s, 1500s, whatever, 1600, long time ago, 300, 400 years ago, whatever. Anyways, the sword was lost or stolen in like 1941 when, as I researched that after World War II or World War One, I guess World War II probably, yeah,
Too, yeah.
and yeah, World War II by an American apparently, I believe. So that sword's missing today. But Masamune was a master swordsmith, and in the forward, it alludes to that sword making is no different than making money, like the creation of decentralized money, like Bitcoin and Litecoin.
Hmm.
So
I'm going to read
yeah,
a portion
it's
from it.
let's do
Everyone should read it. Our listeners will
it.
read it. They're gonna buy the book and read it. It's I think 2 or 3 pages, not too long, but it's well written. There is no honor in resisting change for its own sake. Therefore, Litecoin aims to preserve what Satoshi folded into his creation while ensuring it can thrive and endure as new conditions arise. Litecoin carries that standard forward, not as a departure, but as a fulfillment of those values, a continuation of the same principles expressed through wider application. In that regard, it has become the master. So I thought that was good.
Yeah. There's a part in there too where it talks about like it requires many folds, and I laugh because there's a little bit of the forward is talking about my actual account also, right? So being the master, but also Litecoin being the master, and it talks about many folds have had to, it wasn't something that happened overnight, right? And if you look at my X account, I think I have over like I don't know 250,000 posts, right? So this is something that had to be hammered and folded many times, right, to get where we are today. So, and I hope that the story um, gives you guys that idea of kind of what I've kind of gone through. So,
I think it does. It did for me. And knowing you makes it so just as a general statement, we've communicated. You've been on the show before. We've had calls. No, I didn't meet you in the flesh yet, but we've spoken. And some of these things that you share in the book, I knew, and probably a few others knew about these things, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to kind of say what is this guy talking about. But there's so
Right.
much more in the book, which I really appreciated. It's like, okay, the cat's out of the bag with this other stuff, because I was probably one
Yeah.
of a handful of people that knew these folks that actually know you. And then there's so much more. So again, it's a really
Right.
layered book about
It is.
the man master and all these other things with Litecoin, because it is a book on Litecoin, but
Yeah.
it's really interesting. And like I said, very easy to consume, but it's very layered. I want to talk about Doug and Brian, because even though they're peripheral characters, they're part of the story. Tell us about Doug and
Yeah.
Brian and kind of the conversations you were having with them, who they are to you. Tell us about
Yeah.
those two characters.
Yeah. I will do that. Yeah. So both Brian and Doug, they wrote notes to the book, so you can read their firsthand the little note, um, to me and to the readers in the book. So Brian is my brother, and my brother's a little bit younger than me, and we were in college. I was the older brother in college, and he kind of came up there, and I got him, down the wrong path a little bit in certain things, and he really got caught up into gambling, right? And it pretty much kind of destroyed him at school. He ended up dropping out because of it. And we talked about, I talk about this in the book, but there was the George Bush ban. And around that time, they just shut it down, right? So you couldn't play poker anymore online. And my brother would, I specifically remember him going up like a lot of money. Like at the time, it was, he'd go up and down like 5, 10, $20,000. And I was like, this is just crazy. So my brother, Brian, um, ended up uh, going into debt, having an insane gambling addiction. But thankfully, George Bush, by happen chance, when he banned it, it actually helped because he couldn't do that anymore. He couldn't be on the computer. He couldn't be gambling all of his money online, And I always felt like some of these systems weren't regulated and that they were just stealing his money. And then I think he even tried it out of is it Monte Cristo or whatever that I don't know. There's like whatever that place that allows gambling. I think he like VPN'd it over there. But anyways, he had a gambling problem. He ended up leaving, and then he went to my uncle's. He went to go work with my uncle. And in the book, I kind of talked about my uncle really bringing him to Christ. But I feel like he's telling me that his faith came a little bit before, obviously. But as you know, when you find faith, everyone has a longer. Their story is always different, right? And so I symbolized him finding faith from my uncle, who's is a believer, and just by happen chance, what he does for profession was install skylights. So it just when I reflect back, I was like, this is so amazing. I really truly do think it's amazing. And so that's my uncle Mike, and my brother went there and worked with him, and then ended up having a great life after that. And he ended up going back to college later, and stuff. So he's doing great, and it was just. And so what I talk about in the story is that it kind of it helped my brother in a way that the ban was there, but I also think that it perhaps may have been the reason why Satoshi created Bitcoin. Like, could be the reason. It's possible that may have been the straw that broke the camel's back, and it ties back into a little bit of numerology. So the date of that, when that law, I believe, was signed, was October 13th. I think it was 2006, right? So you're seeing this 1013 thing here. And if you know, Litecoin's birthday is 1013, October 13th. And I think that would have been, or what, 5 years later. So 5 years later to the day, Litecoin was launched, right? I mean, it's just probably coincidence, but it's something, right? And it drew me in. It's drawing me into that. And so I wrote about it, right? So that is in there. And I think it's super interesting
Well, the poker
on
thing's
Brian.
interesting. Yeah, I'll interject. The poker thing is interesting. Bitcoin did have the poker client in it. You're talking about legislation that Bitcoin specifically addressed. And last year in Las Vegas at the closing panel, Charlie actually commented about that aspect and how Litecoin is freedom money, and that basically, you should be able to turn people's money off, et cetera. And it was in the context of actually, I think, poker or some sort of game,
Oh,
which was very
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I'll link that in the show notes as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, so let's jump over to my cousin Doug. So my cousin Doug is somebody, one of my best friends, and we go hunting together. That's just what we do, right? So him and I have been going hunting, archery hunting for forever. Basically, after I got out of college, it's just been that's what we do, right? And we don't always talk. But during hunting season or scouting, whatever, we just go, and we've done so much together and experienced so many things in the woods that he's just like there's a lot of I don't know how to say like danger, but I mean it's rugged. You're hiking around at night. You're running into bears, weird sounds also. So you're also harvesting animals. You're hunting animals. It's a it, yeah, it's a if you I mean most people have never hunted before, but and the reason I just by happen chance put it into the book because of the I feel like I've been on a hunt.
Yeah, and you've
And,
hunted big game,
yeah,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
elk
Yeah.
and big
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. Elk, deer, bear, cougar. Yeah. Moose. Yeah. All of it. Yeah. With a bow. So no grizzly bears though. At least not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
You're not a bear
It's,
hunter in these markets. I think you're wrong.
yeah. Yeah. No, I took the bull.
So let's talk about chapter 11. Again, we're skipping around. We're surveying your book. Moon barbecue, corn cheese, the Litecoin commercial. Tell us about chapter 11.
Yeah. So chapter 11 is corn cheese, and it's my kid's favorite chapter, obviously, because the name just stands out. Um, that experience is super interesting. Okay, so I wonder if I should just kind of go through all of it, or just kind of maybe dive into a little bit here. I'll just probably go into all of it. How about that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I think that was in 22. Yeah, maybe 23 actually. I can't remember. Because it was around my wife's birthday. So anyways, I get contacted by I think John Kim was like, "Hey, do you want to go do a Litecoin commercial?" And I was like, I don't know, maybe. I wasn't too thrilled about going there. So at the time I was still anonymous, so it had to have been before yeah, so it was before. Okay, so yeah, it was in 22. It was I think February, March I got contacted. And kind of the start of the bear market there. And so I wasn't sure, but the date was around my wife's birthday, and I was like, okay, all right, I got to go. That's a sign. That's a symbol, to me. And I asked my wife, and of course, she was thrilled to go. She's like, why wouldn't we go?
And where was it?
Yeah, it was in Hollywood, California. Yeah, yeah. So we had to travel there, obviously, and so it was. We actually were in the commercial, and to get in the commercial they asked that you submit like put an outfit on that you want to wear and then take a picture or whatever and then send it to them. So my wife, she put on a t-shirt that I got her at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Who, right? So she put on the Who t-shirt, and that's the picture she submitted to the Hollywood casting or whatever crew.
Mm-hmm.
But in the story, which is interesting, is that I named my wife Alice,
Right.
and in Alice in Wonderland, it's like the Who when she meets the caterpillar, who are you?
Right. Right.
And yeah, so when I'm sitting there, I mean I won't get to that part yet, but So anyways, so we go to Hollywood, and at the time I'm still anonymous. Nobody knows what I look like, and I won't say that either. But okay, so I go there anonymously, and then I meet a bunch of people there that have been popular Litecoiners, promoting Litecoin and stuff for years. And we had a great time. We did the commercial, met Two Chains. Two Chains was there. He's in the commercial. He has a really catchy line where he says something like, "Now that's a vibe," and that's kind of like the line of the ad. And even today, like people still use that. That's a vibe. That's a vibe. So it's just whoever came up with that had some foresight, I think, to use that line. And then even Two Chains himself, right? So there was another commercial at the same time with Zcash, and I think they did David Duchovny from X-Files. So that's the character they picked. Litecoin picked Two Chains, and see the thing about Two Chains, and I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, you could think of Litecoin, maybe Litecoin and Bitcoin as two chains, or you could think of Litecoin and Dogecoin as two chains, or you could think of Litecoin as two chains itself, right? So with Mimblewimble and Litecoin, I don't know what you want to call it, main or whatever, the public ledger side, there's two parallel chains running for Litecoin. So I call that two chains. So you got two chains, that's a vibe. Randy, Miss Teen Crypto, was there with her father. We hung out with her a lot at there. So John Kim was there with his son. Let's see, there's more people there, obviously, too, that I'm forgetting. But yeah, we're there in line, and my wife's in the commercial and stuff. So it was great. My wife had a good time meeting everybody. I think I took this out of the book. So when I first met Charlie, he's a pretty quiet, humble dude, but also a jokester, like a witty jokester. And I can't remember why I asked him this, but I asked him about a specific, either it was a Bitcoin wallet or a Litecoin wallet. And I said, "Hey, is this yours? Is this your wallet?" And he goes, "Does it have dollars?" And I was like, "No." And he clicked back. He goes, "It's not mine then." And it kind of, I was like, did anybody else hear that? It was the first day I ever met Charlie, in person. And he was obviously cracking up and laughing. He thought it was funny, perhaps there. And so that was kind of my first time meeting Charlie there. And then I think we filmed the commercial. And even the commercial itself, I can't remember who it was. If John asked, it's like, "Hey, before, is there certain things we should bring or do or whatever?" And I provided a list of things I thought would be good. Well, one like a Miami Dolphins jersey. Okay, so I think it's Randy's dad, Randy, wore a Miami Dolphins jersey, number 84, and so Litecoin actually had a partnership with
The Dolphins.
the Litecoin Foundation. Yeah, the Dolphins.
Yep.
To accept Litecoin, I think for raffle tickets or something like that. Just a fun way to kind of promote Litecoin. And the cool part is, well, what number is Dan Marino wear, or did he wear? Number 13, right? Number 13, and his probably most famous season would have been the 1984 season, and I think he threw for, I don't remember what it was, 48 touchdowns or something like that. So you got this 84, 13 kind of going there. I just, so some of the numerology, again, some of these little symbols and signs or whatever, coincidences are in the book. And I find them super intriguing and interesting. So that's weaved in and out of there. And then so, we filmed the commercial and we all go to dinner. At the time, I don't remember if I paid attention, but I think I did. We walked under the sign, and I turned to Alice. I was like, "Look at the sign," because the sign was Moon Barbecue number 2. And I think you even knew it. You've been there, or about these places.
Yeah, there were a few of them. There was a moon barbecue. I don't know if it was number one in Gardena. Yeah, and of course the one in K
All
Town
right.
is the one you're describing.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real place. Like you can Google it, go look at the sign. It's there today. I've told some people about like Moon Barbecue number two, and they're like, "Well, I don't get it." So the reason for me is it's
It's the second moon.
yeah, it's the second moon, right? So it's moon number two, and I feel like Litecoin is moon number two. Uh, Even that old documentary, the rise and rise of Bitcoin, it's almost like you see two rise and rise of Bitcoin.
Right.
So maybe there is a second, maybe there's a second. So at dinner, and I'll go into the story now. So at dinner, um, I'm actually sitting across from Charlie Lee himself, right? And like I said before, he's just a normal guy. He's not flashy, not braggadocious. He's just somebody that's like would be like a really good friend. And but he's sitting there across from me, kind of mysterious. He's not saying a lot of words, right? He's pretty quiet. It's almost like he's scanning everybody and kind of like waiting to say something, right? Very strategic, I would say, and very highly intelligent, obviously. And over the course of dinner, we're all having fun, and John Kim's there, and of course he's the life of the party, right? And he ordered shots, and at the time I don't think I really wanted a shot, but I was like, okay. My wife had a shot, so I took a shot. We all drank, um,
Soju.
yeah, soju, that's what it is, and so we all took shots, and you had Charlie sitting over there. I don't know if Charlie even took a shot, not that it matters, but he's across from me, and I remember like all this food coming all around me. I had no clue what it was. And you have these like little burners, you're cooking them over these little burners. And I just see Charlie sitting there and he orders this dish of which apparently is corn cheese. And so he orders this dish and it's just sitting there like next to him, and I'm just watching it and he never really touches it. I don't think he even takes a bite. I don't remember exactly. Charlie would have to tell you, but I almost feel like he ordered it and never touched it. And everyone's eating, having a good time, and towards the end of the meal, he slides it over to me and says, "Do you want this?" And I was a little like taken back because for one, it's somebody else's food. I don't know you. Why are you sliding over this dish of like corn cheese? It's like doesn't seem like it's that good. And I think John Kim said something like, it's Charlie's favorite. And when he said that, it, I take this many different ways, but the way I'd probably take it now is that Charlie was offering something to me that he thought was good and maybe a tradition in his culture, perhaps, or just really appreciated it. So it's kind of like a gift offering. But by me denying it in a way, it was almost like a test that I could say no to Charlie too. Like so if I didn't agree with Charlie, I would say, hey, no, I'm not fawning over him. You know what I mean? Like I see him as an equal in a way. I mean, obviously he's super brilliant, but I see him more as an equal, and I was able to say no. But for me, I knew as soon as that happened, and later on that night, I was like, I got to write this down because this has to be in the book because that was one of the big points for me was I feel like he was offering it as the cream of the core, like the cream of the crop, right? And that Litecoin was there as a side dish. And if only you saw it and only you took a bite of it, you could have it. And it was super symbolic to me. And I know, knowing Charlie that, I mean, he made us laugh and go, "Oh, I just like it," and wanted, him to try it. But to me, I feel like it was intentional, right? And that's why it's later in the book, and the chapter is called "Corn Cheese," and I never took a bite of it, but it still sat there.
You preserved your humanity and said no. I like corn
Yeah,
cheese or cheese corn. It is one of the many dishes you may find on a table. It wouldn't be considered panchan. Those are like the kimchi and the oi and the mu, all the other small, more vegetable type or fermented dishes. The corn
yeah,
cheese sits alone, but I will say this. Even though it wasn't your food, typically at a Korean table, everything is shared. So the corn cheese
Yes.
was absolutely for you if you should have decided to take it.
Yeah. See, it's so perfect.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Well, I remember seeing pictures of that. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And I knew exactly where you guys were eating. And that was
Oh,
fun.
it's
And this is again the Flexa commercial, which didn't come out initially. We waited a while to say what's coming out.
we had to wait a long time for
Long
that.
time.
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did. I want to say it was multiple years.
it was.
I will mention one other thing that it's in the chapter too, was that okay, so there was a bunch of us there or whatever, and Charlie said I got the bill. So he offered to pay for everybody. And I thought that was really nice of him. And I figured, I kind of glanced over as he was at the, he's a little bit shorter of a person, and he's at the, at the hostess stand or whatever there, the counter, and he pulls out his wallet, and it's like a big billfold. Had like a lot of hundreds in it or whatever. I saw him pull out a lot of hundreds, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. Why would you have that much money on you? And and he paid with cash. And I remember thinking to myself, like, hey, wait a minute. I mean, I know you had to pay with cash, but it was like, he wasn't using a card, like a credit card or anything like that, or a debit card, or a tap to pay. He actually pulled out cash. And again, it was like, what did Satoshi set out to create?
Freedom money.
Electronic, yeah, electronic, peer to peer cash. So it was another moment that I knew I had to share.
Well, he was practicing that ethos with the cash, and that's sometimes hard to do in the environment of convenience. But you're exactly right. Peer-to-peer electronic cash, Bitcoin, a better variety of Bitcoin and Litecoin, again being the cryptocurrency
Yes.
for payments. It is cash. It's digital cash, and I think with physical cash, the thing we don't like about it is, okay, it's inflationary and arbitrary and all these sorts of things, which we don't have with 21 million or 84 million. But the
Yeah.
privacy is
It's
there,
fair money.
and it's
Yeah.
also anti-Fed, right? The less reserves they have in an account, the less they can inflate, because it's the 1-to-10 ratio of like the upside down pyramid sort of thing. So
Hmm.
they can issue 9 on top of every one of reserves. So if we remove
They
that from
can.
them, it also is
Hmm.
kind of an anti-bank gesture. But that's good. I
Yeah.
liked that part of this book. I think it's an interesting
Yeah.
little take.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. If I were Satoshi, this is a quote. If I were Satoshi, I would sign the Genesis block. Litecoin is a better Bitcoin. This was Charlie Lee at the 2022 Litecoin Summit in Vegas. You were there. And I think you may have spoken out in that setting during that talk. I want to say he may have alluded to you in the audience. And because at the time you were saying Charlie is Satoshi. So
Great.
what's going on with this at the time and that talk? What do you remember?
Yeah. So building up to that, at the Litecoin Summit, there's been a lot of cat and mouse that's occurred between Charlie and I, and I've been, pestering him, if you will, about perhaps him being Satoshi. And I won't go into all the details, but it's been back and forth, right? And at times he plays along, and at times he doesn't. He gives me a little here and takes a little there, and so leading up to that, I don't remember exactly. I have to go back to what I have in the book, but I feel like he was at the time really wasn't too fond of me mentioning it. Okay, and this has happened a lot of times. So
And
it's
you
like,
were
I'm
loud
not
about
Satoshi,
it.
whatever.
Yeah, you were loud about it.
Yeah, I go through episodes where it's like I can't handle it. I mean, I don't want to go too much into it, but it's just too much for me. But yeah, I'm the way I am. But okay, it's a lot for me. So then, pretty convinced, and so he's like kind of toned it down. Is what he said, and then all of a sudden, I have my wife there at the summit. So if every time I've gone to one of these conferences or these events, my wife's been right next to me. And one of the main reasons is because I want another person to be able to see what I've been saying, like seeing what I've been seeing. Like I said, my wife is very analytical. She comes from like a German family, engineering family, right? So they're very logical, right? So they're not going to be seeing signs or symbols or crypto things hidden, and they're just not going to believe that there's any way that any kind of messages or movies or TV shows or media or books that have anything like that in there. Even today they don't think it's possible, which makes it fun, right? So my wife gets to see all of it, and the story kind of talks about, as it progresses along. Towards the end, I think she kind of does see it too, but I kind of got a little sidetracked. Do you want to help me get back on?
We were talking
Sorry.
about, no, it's all good. We were talking about the setting where you were at the Litecoin Summit, and basically,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
Charlie kind of
That's what
called
it
you
was.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, what I wanted to make the point was like Charlie was like, don't talk about it so much. And then at the summit, during, his opening ceremony speech presentation, towards the end, he actually just pops up right on the screen. It says, "I am Satoshi Nakamoto," and he says, "I'm Satoshi Nakamoto," and then he goes, "But I'm not Satoshi Nakamoto." And then it shows the next slide, and it's like an old article of where there's some speculation that Charlie was Satoshi. And he says he makes a decent point. He says something like, if I was Satoshi, I would just come out and sign the Genesis block that Craig Wright is a fraud. And a little bit prior to that, he said something, and I said, I yelled from the crowd. I said, "Do it!" Right when he, right when, then he goes, "Master." He said, he called me Master. He calls me Master. It's hilarious. Cracks me up. And which means the name anonymously is probably okay. And so he says, Master doesn't believe me. And I go, I can't, I said something, and I feel like it caught him off guard a little bit, and he repeated it. Um, and then he scratches his nose. So you got to read the book to understand what that means too. So yeah, so we're kind of playing this cat and mouse, even in the public, right? And of course, most of the people in the crowd, like, oh, whatever, Charlie's not Satoshi. He says he's not Satoshi. It's kind of a joke to him, and everybody around, whatever. And then he says, after the Craig Wright thing, he goes, um, he goes, if I really was, I would actually sign the Genesis block that says, and Litecoin is a better Bitcoin, right? And the point of that is, if he was Satoshi, he's basically implying that Litecoin probably a better Bitcoin. And the stories in the book kind of talk about why it actually is ideal money, it's better money, and specifically even one of his earlier MIT presentations, he also says that Litecoin's better. He said Litecoin's a better Bitcoin. He drops the mic as he walks off stage. It's really good. You should watch it. So we had that interaction again at the summit, and in the book I talk about, so I walk out of the double doors, and there's some I guess maybe a callback to a previous part of the story where Charlie walks out of the double doors. I walk out of the double doors, and I'm sitting there with yeah, I think I can mention it. I'll just probably mention the first name. So David and Tyler, and there's three of us, and I say something like, who do you guys think Satoshi Nakamoto is? And I'm thinking to my brain, I'm thinking they would be like, oh, we think it could be Charlie. No, both of them were like, no, it's not Charlie. I think it's Hal Finney, one of them says. Mm-hmm. And the other one said Nick Szabo, which over the years, I originally thought it was Nick Szabo too, because of the initials. And then also he was kind of early to it. But over time, I don't think it's him at all. And then, Hal Finney, just because Hal Finney was there, he was the first person with Satoshi to run the software, so it could be Hal Finney in a way, and there's a lot of speculation. A lot of people think that Hal would be a good Satoshi, right? Because he ended up getting, I think it was Lou Gehrig's disease and passing away. He seemed like a really good guy, So he wouldn't be a bad Satoshi. In the whole idea of Satoshi itself is more of probably the idea, anyways, right? So when Satoshi created Bitcoin, definitely probably wasn't by himself, right? So maybe it was his family, or maybe it was the Adam Back, some of the work he's done, or maybe a professor he had, like somebody like Ron Rivest at MIT, or maybe he had some interaction with like a John Nash, in Princeton area growing up. So the idea of Bitcoin itself was like most ideas, it's how you compose them from other things. So yeah, that's and then then Charlie goes at the end of the summit, he goes, I'm not Satoshi, so that means Litecoin's not a better Bitcoin.
Right, right, right. Walks it
And
backwards.
he walks off stage, and I think it was Tom. Tom Crown. That's his name on socials. He says something like, "There goes Satoshi."
He absolutely said Satoshi, and I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of people think I've been contacted by people. They're like, "There's a typo. It's not Satoshi. It's Satoshi." And I laugh and I go, "Yeah, that's intentional. It's not a typo."
Satoshi, indeed. Charlie is not Satoshi. So, I mean, finding Satoshi, some people, I mean, it's speculative and a lot of disagreement. Yeah. Some would say he wants to remain private. He doesn't want to be known. Obviously. It's a they, not a he. They're alive. They're not alive. We're all Satoshi, right? So, I mean, it's all over the place, but it seems like we can almost pick a Satoshi. And that's where I would be like, okay, Charlie is the Satoshi we know. He is Satoshi Light.
Yeah.
And he would be my Satoshi. He knew how to code the Genesis block. I guess he reverse engineered that somehow from Bitcoin. Obviously a smart guy, and he's still active. And he's a mirror. Let's talk about that. The mirror. Yes. You had a chapter on it. The mirror. What is the mirror?
Yes, absolutely. So over time, the way I've kind of gone through Bitcoin and Litecoin was basically I would have a thesis and I would try and destroy it, right? So I was really trying to understand, initially I was trying to understand like what the ratio would be of these two, like the price ratio. That's kind of where I came from initially, was like an LTC BTC price ratio, which really wasn't where a good place to start, but it worked. It was obviously more on demand itself, but so I started there and I just started writing down like the differences of the two. So I would, have a column of Bitcoin and a column of Litecoin. And it's like, well, okay, so both of them, one's created by a known person. Well, let's start with unknown. So Bitcoin was created unknown by Satoshi Nakamoto, an anonymous person. Charlie Lee created Litecoin. He's a known person. Okay. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then you go back to 2017, December, Charlie Lee like sold his Litecoin. So he had some Litecoin that, he either bought or mined or whatever, however he got it in a fair way. No pre-mine, nothing like that. But he ends up selling it, okay, and giving away some of it to some other things like code.org or whatever. And by him doing that, he essentially divested from Litecoin, while Satoshi is still vested. Satoshi obviously was early to Bitcoin and was the primary hash rate and security for, I want to say, over a year and a half, right? From the 2009 to the mid 2010, I believe is when it was. Yep. He was most of the hash rate. And you could see that. So Satoshi's hash rate, as hash rate kind of picked up, he curtailed it. He turned it off and it just, went down. So I think all those Coinbase coins are, they're not consolidated. Maybe they are, whatever, but they're not like in one big pool. It's just they're kind of spread out in different addresses. And okay, so you have Satoshi's unknown, Charlie's known. Satoshi has a stash. Charlie doesn't have a stash. And then Satoshi left. Satoshi actually left. And actually, Satoshi left on April, I don't know, maybe even December 13th. But on April, he wrote an email to Mike Hearn that said, he's like, do you want to step out of the limelight or something like that? And Charlie wrote, or not Charlie, Satoshi wrote, yeah, I'm leaving Bitcoin for other things. And the title of the book is The Other Bitcoin, right? So I'm alluding that perhaps Litecoin is the other thing uh, that would be worth leaving for. So Satoshi left and Charlie stayed. And right early in the book, I have that column there for people, the reader, to look at. And a couple other things that kind of pop out to you is that Satoshi's birthday, as in written on the P2P forum, was 1975, April 1975, which also is Charlie's brother's birthday. I believe is April 1st, 1975. And Charlie himself, his birthday is April 1977. So 2 years apart. And Litecoin came after Bitcoin 2 years.
And by the way,
pretty much.
I think that was just about a day ago, that 15 years ago, a day or so ago, that Satoshi said he moved on to other things.
That is correct. It was on April 23rd,
23rd. So 2 days ago.
2011. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of talk about the 23rd. I think there's potentially something there on the 23rd, and it was an email to Mike Hearn. And so, guess who got Charlie into Bitcoin?
You tell us.
Mike Hearn. The last email, I don't know if it was the last email, because I think Satoshi did an email December 13th of 2011. I think did something, wrote something. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, so Mike Hearn, so Satoshi sent an email to Mike Hearn, and Mike Hearn worked with Charlie at Google at that time too. So kind of interesting. I don't know, whatever. And okay, let's move on. What else we got?
It's the mirror. Oh, I mean, even the currencies are a mirror.
Yeah.
That's not what we were talking about, but that's true too.
Yeah, they are because they both have unique, independent hashing algorithm, right? So Bitcoin itself uses SHA-256, which is more computational heavy an algorithm, right? So it has a specific ASIC miner. Litecoin also has its own unique hashing algorithm, which is S-CRYPT or script. I call it script. And that actually was created by like a private citizen, the algorithm. And I believe SHA-256, not that it matters, but it was created by NSA. And so you have this other device, which is more memory intensive. I think it uses more RAM or whatever to do the computation, but it's different. The point is it's different. And so you have these two different hardware systems. And as an engineer, I always understand redundancy, lead lag kind of systems. And in my mind, if we have money, we want to have at least two systems. We have more now today, but if we had at least two, Bitcoin and Litecoin, it would be a good foundational system to build upon. And then let's go back. So let's go back to Musashi. Remember the Musashi thing I talked about? The kind of mysterious telegram message from Musashi. Musashi is known for wielding two swords and wrote this strategic book called The Book of the Five Rings. And in the Book of the Five Rings, it kind of talks about mastery of weapons and mastery of oneself, not in just fighting, but also in living, right? To become a good samurai, a good fighter. So when I think of two swords, Musashi is on the back of the book. Yeah. I put Musashi. Yeah, I put Musashi on the back of the book. So now you know who's on the back of the book. There's a logo of Musashi, the character of Musashi. Yeah, there it is. That's Musashi. And I'm not sure if Musashi is wielding two swords. I think he might have one like in a holster. Yeah. Maybe it's a wooden rod. I can't remember. But anyways, the point is that Bitcoin and Litecoin would be the two swords. I don't know which one's the long sword or which one's the short sword, but either way, two swords.
Two swords, two chains, one defense mechanism. This is interesting. We're going long, and I'm fine with it, but I'm not going to talk about Chapter 13. I want to talk about Chapter 13, but I'm not going to talk about Chapter 13 because people should buy it and read it. However,
13's probably a little too much. Yeah.
Well, let's talk. Well, there's a lot in there. Let's just talk about the title, which is kind of the thesis, and it's at the end. Hiding in plain sight, right? The other Bitcoin, Litecoin, why Litecoin is hiding in plain sight. Tell us about this, the title, and also that chapter.
Yeah. So the title itself is the other Bitcoin. And I want people to realize that perhaps that Litecoin actually is the Bitcoin, right? So just shed the name Litecoin and think about what Satoshi wrote. And Satoshi wrote Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And in the white paper, there's 9 pages, and there's a specific piece that I think I have in the book. I may have taken it out, but I think I took it out. But in the white paper, it says specifically the hash rate. It says such as SHA-256, and to me, it's like not definitive. It's not exclusive to SHA-256, right? So the security of it, the mining algorithm, the hashing algorithm, even Satoshi initially said such as. So it was like an example, or it was, maybe a test in a way. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is a test net for Litecoin or Litecoin's a test net, but they're both functioning independent systems. They both do their job. So the title is the other Bitcoin, and the reason for that is I'm basically alluding to that maybe Litecoin is what Satoshi left for, right? And maybe what a lot of us have left for is the other Bitcoin. And I really like the title because I like just the title cover itself is that in the word other, the E is the door and the door's open. The door's open for you guys. The door is open for people to go look, right? And there's like a blue hue, a blue light coming from it. So it's the other Bitcoin. Why Litecoin is hiding in plain sight. The other part I like about it, the subtitle is, so if earned not gifted, that's his name now. It's an anonymous name that he has for the work he's doing online. He was known as Why Litecoin.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and I'd say he was foundational to one of the reasons why I actually just wrote the book, right? So seeing him write his book and go through that process, so it's kind of a little carrot or whatever, a little thank you to Why Litecoin. In the subtitle itself,
and he has a note in your book as well. He does,
yeah, yeah. So him and I, we align when it comes to Litecoin as being the best form of money today, and we both kind of reach different conclusions. He's a little more logical when it comes to how he sees the adoption of Litecoin going forward. Mine's a little more, I'd say, like some spiritual to it. I talk about the symbolism and stuff like that. I get there both ways, obviously, but his ways are a little bit different. He kind of talks about that in the note.
It's a great book. I think this is an important.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It's great to have you on.
Can we talk about? There's one chapter we haven't talked about. I don't know if we were going to talk about, but we got to talk about.
Which one?
Let's see what the title is. I think it's Castle in the Village. I may have changed the title, but I can't remember. But
tell us about that chapter. I know what you're referring to. Yeah, tell us about chapter 7.
Yeah.
But before we do,
yeah,
we're going to do a giveaway just because you kind of gave us a nice little summary of the book. And someone actually anonymously funded a giveaway. So anybody who's listening, the first person to plug in the code the other Bitcoin into the 84 million shop on either the Helotus shirt, the cowboy tee, or this wonderful corn cheese t-shirt, which is absolutely inspired by the book. We talked about it. It's actually going to be a pocket tee. This was advanced.
That's so cool.
This was an advanced proof, and of course you'll get a sticker, and it says Litecoin.
Oh yeah, great.
It says Litecoin in Korean with the corn cheese. Very cute. But anyway, if you add that to your cart and add the other Bitcoin, you will get the shirt, and you will get a hardcover copy of the book mailed to you, and that was funded by an anonymous donor on X. I said, "Hey man, why can't I shout you out?" He's like, "Nope." So either way, it's funded, and whoever types in again the other Bitcoin at the checkout in the code slot, it will zero your cart, and you will get the book and the shirt of your choice. Again, either the cowboy tee or the cheese corn, the light corn tee. Now, tell us about
Love it.
the castle in the village.
Yeah, so let's talk about the castle in the village. So that specific chapter is kind of written in two parts, but I kind of want to talk about the first part of it, and because I think it's so funny. And still, Litecoin's 13th birthday, which would have been, I don't know, a year or two ago, 24, 25, whatever that would be. I guess 24. Yeah.
24. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of building up to October 13th, 2024. SpaceX was launching a Starship. Okay. And I don't know how I came across this, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. Happens to be the same day that Litecoin's birthday is, right? And I'm looking at, I was like on some SpaceX forum, and I see this. It says SN30 B12. Okay, so it's like Satoshi Nakamoto 30, and that's, I think it just stands for like Starship number 30 and booster 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So it's like 30 and 12 on Litecoin's birthday. And what was specific about it was that that was the first time in history that Starship or SpaceX was going to catch a booster with the Mechazilla. So it's that, tall tower with those long metal arms that, come together and catch the booster as it's coming back from the atmosphere. It's coming down, and it was on Litecoin's 13th birthday. And so even at the I knew coming up to it, I was like, we got to watch this. And I, hollered at my wife in the story, she's making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And the reason she's, she really wasn't, but I added that to, because on the next rocket, there was a peanut butter, it was the banana. Remember that banana?
Yeah.
The dancing banana. If you're old enough, you remember that, that little animation when we were younger online, So anyways, it was peanut butter jelly time, which I kind of think of Litecoin and Dogecoin of perhaps peanut butter and jelly, And so, and I remember turning to her and I was like, "Baby, you got to watch this. It's happening on Litecoin's 13th birthday. It's SN30 booster." I was all on it, and really very intense, and just because it aligns so well. And she kind of jokes, and I said, "This just cracks me up because I would." She's like, "Well, you think they did that? You think they plotted all this?" And I'm like, "Of course they did. Of course." And I'm straight faced to her, like, "Yeah, babe." I just remember that, and they actually caught it. So they did it. They caught it, and even when it was happening, it was fun. But the announcers were like, because it comes back with 13 Raptor engines, right? So fires 13 engines is coming down, just screaming down. Really, if you should watch the video, it's so good. Screaming down, and then they, right before it's caught, they fire up the 3 engines, right? And so it's 13 and 3, and SN30 and 12. So it's one off of 31 and 13, right? So,
but we also
and then
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So, then basically, like, well, my wife's talking about, like, because she always asks me this. So if you think Elon is supporting Litecoin,
correct?
Yeah. If you see on my next, I talk about all the time. So I believe that. Anyways, so Elon perhaps is signaling about Litecoin also, and I think a really kind of fun way to think about it is that Charlie was an architect of a castle, and the reason for this is I think even Charlie wrote about like Bitcoin being a castle. You can find his article on Medium, and Billy's village is this village outside of Charlie's castle, and I talk about like this little metaphor and story about both of those being Litecoin and Dogecoin, and the reason for that is, so let's just say Billy's village is its village doesn't have an army, there's no soldiers, but it has copper. It like sits on a copper mine, and it has a lot of copper coins. And they worked to deal with Charlie, as in, Charlie actually worked to deal with, not a deal. It's just, he proposed a solution to Dogecoin in 2014
Merge mine.
to, to Billy. He's like, hey, why don't you merge mine these two? And so they end up, merge mining on 9/11, of course. And so it kind of talks about that. So Billy's Village is now working with game theory, essentially is what it is. So the game theory of those two networks working together. And so Billy's Village pays the soldiers with copper, Dogecoin, as a tail emission, and they share the same security. And so, there is a reason why that Elon could be supporting Dogecoin is because actually by supporting Dogecoin, it actually, in my view, gives Litecoin a better security model, because as the halvings progress every 4 years, which the next halving for Litecoin is a little more than a year away. I think it's maybe late July 2027 or early August 2027, around that time frame. That the block rewards to the miners gets cut in half, right? And so the revenue that they make for the Litecoin portion is less by half. But the Dogecoin revenue is around the same because it doesn't change. It's
Fixed.
10,000. Yeah. It's 10,000 Dogecoin every minute, forever. And a lot of people think that they still think Dogecoin's like a joke. I mean, yeah, it's funny, right? Because the meme, whatever, but it's a serious chain. It's an absolutely serious chain. A serious chain is a functioning chain. It's a Bitcoin chain. It's got a little bit faster blocks. I think the capacity is probably actually less than Litecoin right now because they never added SegWit or MWeb, but they could, right? So, but Litecoin is positioned today as the most capacity. It's, in my view, it's the best version of Bitcoin today. You can even call Dogecoin a Bitcoin, right?
Chain. Well, it's a Litecoin.
So, yeah, it's because it's
more of a Litecoin.
Would be the Doge father. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Well, we can't have you on without you making a comment about the markets. Then, if you're talking about Doge and Litecoin, the big analyst, maybe we'll end on that. Where's the market? I mean, if we speak of earned, he talks about Litecoin basically being in a bear market for 8 years, right?
Yes.
So where are we looking? What are we sitting around 55, 56 as of this recording, I believe, per one Litecoin. I want to say Doge is around 9 cents. Where are we headed in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. So for Litecoin, I've been wrong on my timing of basically where Litecoin's going to go, but projecting its continued growth against Bitcoin. You can see this with all on-chain data. What I mean by that is, I think even Luxfolio posts like a report on that. So it's like active addresses. It is the median USD sent on chain. Like, so the median amounts like around $150. Let's just round up a little bit, like 200,000 transactions a day. It's around half of what Bitcoin's doing in that aspect. And then, the averages. So the average of Bitcoin on chain is, let's just say it's like 100,000, and then Litecoin's like 13,000. So we can see this data, and what I kind of developed over time was this valuation model where it's a simple model, but we'll just break it down. So if Litecoin's doing half the transactions that Bitcoin's doing, then it should probably have maybe half the market cap, and that's how it values those different models, and it does it per active addresses. Total, transaction, median USD average, and then also there's like one more. I can't remember what it is, but maybe new transactions itself, right? So Litecoin's chain has been growing over time, and it's being monetized. And it's hard. These other chains are not. When I say monetized, so they're being used as money. And what's really impressive about Litecoin is that it's had an extreme narrative headwind. One with Charlie selling, which is negative in most people's eyes. In my view, it's more like he loved it, he set it free. Mm-hmm. But there's that negative aspect of it that was coupled with, as you mentioned, the bear market. The price decline against Bitcoin itself. So you could go look at the LTC BTC ratio, which shows that I think it topped in like 2015, which was over what? Yeah, a decade ago.
Yeah, that's 11 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been in decline, right? So there's been that natural headwind, if you will, against Litecoin. Yet, despite that, its network has continued to grow, right? So even right there, when you look at that, you should be like, that's interesting, and Litecoin's stuck at $50. It's been, oscillating around maybe like 90 for like the last 8 years, right? So you could look at the prices perhaps being maybe compressed or suppressed when compared to these other coins, and their usages. Its market cap's like 4 billion. So short story, if you were to take those models and then do future price predictions or forecasting of the market cap, I think you're going to go much higher, right? And even today, I would say you're probably around, let's just say maybe like a 1 trillion market cap potential, which is around like $13,000 per coin. And this stuff can get speculative and euphoric and manic. And so I actually think it's going to go up a lot higher than that and then probably come back down, around that area. Is what I see happening. And with the ratio being so low, and I believe might even be the lowest almost ever, even since it was launched, the ratio is so low.
Yeah.
It's like 1,300 or almost 1,400 Litecoin per one Bitcoin. It, yeah, it's not right. It's almost laughable, and so, but the question is, it can probably stay there a while. But what I will say is that there's a lot of catalysts that are there. And one of the easiest catalysts historically we could see is that prior to the halving, around a year before, typically it's one of the best times to get a position in Litecoin, if you're a speculator or whatever. And I think that it's set up that with that catalyst potential we've seen with Bitcoin and other narratives such as like let's just say LitVM, which is adding basically Ethereum on top of Litecoin.
Yep.
That chain could be able to do everything that Ethereum can do: the lending, the Uniswap stuff, the tokenization. Anything on Ethereum could be done on Litecoin with LitVM, assuming the pegging process, is pretty flawless. So yeah, I think it's just in that aspect. If it is a second Bitcoin, and when you start looking at the network stats, it should be, at least probably 10x from where it is today. So 500. But then again, once it's 500, then all those valuations go up even more. So
yeah, and people view it differently as well. Because 500 would have cleared the previous two all-time highs, which was, I believe, 390 and then 420, something like this. Depending on which exchange or chart you look at. But I think the days are very bright for Litecoin, and I'm excited to see the LitVM testnet having done so much in the past few days. I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah.
So, and shout out to LitVM as a sponsor of this episode as well. Well, I want people to buy your book. Again, check the show notes. It's on Amazon. Buy 1 or 4 copies. Grab a hardcover, grab a soft cover. Buy one for your friends. No, I don't make any money off of this, but what I do get from this is knowing that others will learn about Litecoin, and they'll hear interesting lore and history from a human that's been around for a little while. That's you, Master. But again, it's very digestible, and it covers a lot. It's a really layered book, and I think it's a good introduction to the case for Litecoin as you see it, and I tend to agree with that. So, what do you want to leave us with?
Let's see. What do I want to leave everyone with? What I would want people to think about is that, what is Bitcoin, right? So really truly think about what Bitcoin was set out to do, and does it do that? And does it do it well? And if so, is it possible that there's a second implementation of it, perhaps hiding in plain sight? And if there is, could it be better? And what aspects of it would make it a little bit better? And would it be the security model? Would it be perhaps, the block time itself? And maybe those advantages aren't too extreme, but I really want people to actually consider that maybe Litecoin is the Bitcoin, is the better Bitcoin. Litecoin's never had a hard fork, no contentious hard forks. It doesn't have, which we just saw yesterday, the day before, kind of this out of nowhere proposal to fork Bitcoin. So, Bitcoin's had like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Gold. And I mean, really, it's just Bitcoin Cash everyone thinks about. And maybe there's another one. Litecoin doesn't have that, right? It's never been kind of spliced up and divided. And maybe some of the reasons for that is maybe because Charlie is still around, which might be an advantage too. So I just want people to think about that because it is possible, especially with Elon supporting Dogecoin, there might just be a switch, right? So there might come a night when everyone's asleep and a character like Oishi might step out, and all of a sudden, Litecoin is the better Bitcoin.
Litecoin is the better Bitcoin.
You got it.
Well, it has been great having you. I appreciate you returning to the show 50 episodes after the first one, which, by the way, was around the last halving of Litecoin, episode 6. Thanks for everybody who's listened today, who's tuned in. Congrats to whoever got the giveaway on Master's book, which, again, an anonymous donor funded. We'll get that out to you soon. But yeah, we want to follow you. X at MasterBTC LTC. That's the handle. And appreciate you coming on today. And that's it. I think we covered it. Buy the book, folks.
That's great. Thank you, Kyle. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Great to have you back.